Hey Rhiannon, hey Robin, hey Internet. So this month's topic where we talk about two games with two-player variants, both good and not. Rhiannon pointed out that Robin plays two-player games mostly, and I would like to say I'm the same. My main gaming opponent is my wife, so I like to have games that play two players. So going from that, I do have quite a number of games that we've played two-player, and I've seen what's good and quite bad that we have here, and I wanted to go through some of them. So the first one I wanted to go through was a game called Yabu no Naka. So this game is published in English under the name Hattari, and in this game you play as detectives and you're trying to solve a murder, and you're trying to figure out which of these three culprits is the murderer. And you do that by going through and looking at these culprits, and they all have numbers in the back. So like a 3 and 8 and all that. So for example, if the three culprits you see in front of the murder, and once they're revealed, they're the 8, 7, and 3, it's always the highest number that is the murderer. And basically what you do is you look at two of them, you vote on which of the three you think is the culprit, and then the next player looks at the two you didn't vote on, and they get to, after that, they vote, and you go around once throughout the table. At the very beginning of the game also, you get one of these to look at, so you know this is not in there, and you pass it to the player next to you, usually to your left or right. In a two-player variant, you just don't pass that card that you see first, and you just see one and you're good. In the game, this game actually says 3 to 4 players right here. 3 to 4, but when it was printed in English, when they did the English rules, they added a two-player variant. On the card itself here, on the 2, this is the lowest number in the game, by the way, it tells you, here in Japanese, that on a 3-player game, remove this card. So this one's not in the game, just put it back in the box. The 2-player variant tells you to also remove the 8. So your choices are limited from 3 to 7, one of which is blank. He's always innocent. And then you do the same thing. So as I said earlier, if your cards get revealed, once they're revealed, it's always the highest number character is the murderer. However, if the 5 is in there, he reverses the result, and it's the lowest number who is the murderer. And whoever voted correctly gets their voting chips back. Whoever voted incorrectly gets them back, but flipped upside down. Once you have no more voting chips, or all of your voting chips are flipped upside down, you lose. This is one of those types of Japanese games where you don't really play for a winner, you're playing to see who's the first loser. Just actually, I'm not sure, that seems to be a theme. Anyway, another game that we like is a Love Letter, but I have it right here, you can see, it's up here. It doesn't play as well two-player. I mean, it plays fine, and it works just as well, but it doesn't feel as good as the 3 or 4-player game. However, we do have a game called Many Cinderellas. This is the Japanese version, and it was printed in English by Grail Games. Many Cinderellas is a game where the prince is looking for the princess after the ball. You know how the story goes. Unfortunately, the prince doesn't know what she looks like. In this game, he doesn't know what she looks like at all. So he asks the people around the castle, and everybody has their opinion on who Cinderella is. So, for example, each card here they have traits, usually about 4. They have a number, the hair color, which is this lady's blonde. She likes rice, ice cream, and cake. And they each have a rumor that becomes active when you play them. So for example, this lady says Cinderella is not royalty. So on your turn, what you do is you play one of these cards, and this rule becomes active for all Cinderellas that the prince is looking for. And then all the players vote yes or no if that is active, and they each have their own voting token. At the end of the game, at the end of the round, once everybody's played their cards, there will be a set of requirements of who Cinderella is and is not, and hopefully one of your cards you have left is actually Cinderella. If everybody has a lot of cards, it's about rank. Lowest rank wins. This is actually a very funny game, mostly because the range of Cinderellas that pop up, and Cinderella could be an old man, or Cinderella could very well be just a cat, and and it's fine. The prince just asks no questions. And the 2-player variant of this game is slightly different, more because in the 3 and 4-player game, each player is putting their requirements of Cinderella in the deck, on the table to make it happen, to make it for themselves. In the 2-player game, the deck plays with you, so you get a random requirement from the deck, and it plays really, really well. Tom Vassell did a review of this, and he marked it as a love letter killer, which, I'm inclined to agree. This is quite good. Anyway, another game that is really not a variant per se. Another game we like to play as a group is a game called Sabotage. And Sabotage is where you are a bunch of dwarven miners, and you're trying to find gold. And there's saboteurs where they don't want people to find gold, so they can steal it from themselves. It's like a hidden role kind of, deduction, path building kind of game. However, you can't play 2 players. Obviously, it's a hidden role game. That doesn't work. However, they did make a game for 1 and 2 players called Sabotage: The Duel. This is effectively Sabotage 3, and in this game your roles are not hidden. You are clearly against each other, and you're trying to build a path to the gold. And this plays really well because what it adds is that there's extra starting spaces, there's trolls and extra gates of different colors, and it plays really well 1 or 2 players. That's a good one. Yeah. Now let's go for a game that we played, the 2-player, where it's not as good. So we played Colt Express. This does play 2-player, and it's, I believe, 2 through 6. And this is where you there's a 3D train, and you're trying to play these cards, or it's a programmable movement kind of game. So you play a card, and then they play a card, and at the end you just go through all the cards you've played. And in 2-player, you each, as the rules go, you each control 2 players, which is common, I guess, for some games like this, for a 2-player, but you have only so many cards in the deck. I believe you have 11 or not 10 or 11, maybe 12 cards in your character's deck. But in the 2-player variant, you actually just take half of those. There's a predetermined half of both characters that you're controlling and mix them together. So with that, it doesn't work because sometimes you want one of your characters to move, but you clearly don't have that card, and maybe it's one of the cards you've thrown away, or maybe you've used it last round, and it just doesn't work for you. We found a better success where we just play a 4-player game with 2 players controlling 2 characters each, and that makes it a little better, but still not good. Okay, another game that we played 2-player. Then it's not bad, but we played 2-player, was Trains. I love Trains. It's one of my favorite deck building games. I love the board and I love all that cool stuff, and I like Trains. So this game has a large map, such as this one. This is Nagoya. So you can see it's quite a large map. When you play 2 players, you're kind of spread across the board, and you don't really interact unless you force yourself, maybe build next to the other player. But technically, one player can stay on this side of the map, the other player can stay over here, and it wouldn't matter. It's not as cutthroat as it is in a 3 or 4-player game. However, the expansion, or standalone expansion, Trains Rising Sun, adds 2-player maps and cards. Cards better for 2 players. And actually, the Nagoya was the back part, and this is the 2-player map of Kyushu, and the other side is Chiba. So this is a 2-player map. It's nice, tight, very, there's a lot of conflict that can be done with 2 players here, and they added route cards, so you have guidance. Trains Rising Sun is much better if you play mainly 2-player trains. Though it is a standalone and it is an expansion, so if you did want to add original trains to it, and I suggest you do, because you just get more cards and more boards, and that's always good. It works quite well with it. Now, what else I'm running? Ooh, quite long on time here. Another game that we played recently, 2-player, 5 Tribes. Okay, so a lot of people say like 5 Tribes is a bit AP prone, and more because when you build and you try to plan your moves, you can't really think on your turn. You basically have to wait until the board comes back to you, then you can think of a move because of how the board can change over time. So you can't really plan your moves out. So that's, it's not for the AP prone. However, AP, of course, is analysis paralysis for those people who don't know, where you take too long, maybe 5 or 10 minutes on your turn. Not as good. So this game, I like 2-player more because with 2-player, it's a slightly longer game where you have to put 11 camels on the board instead of 8. But you control 2 of the pieces that you need to move characters on the board. So when the 4-player game, you each control 1. That basically marks your turn. You move, then they move their piece, and they move their things. And basically that's how you would set up. In this game, the way you would set it up is you want your turn to you want basically 2 turns in a row, because the way this works is you bid for turn order. So maybe you want to go first this round, maybe you want to go last, maybe you want to go second, or maybe you can only afford to go second, maybe the other player outbids you. That's how this game works. But in 2-player, you have 2 of those pieces. You have basically 2 pieces that you want to put in position. So what you want to do is make yourself go after yourself. So you set yourself up, and it works so much better 2-player that I kept it for that reason alone. Another game that we played 2-player, but it wasn't necessarily meant for 2-player. I bought it as a 3, 4, 5-player game. Was Dead of Winter. Okay, so I've played this a couple of times with the original 2-player rules in the box, where you play cooperatively, no secret objectives, more because you're playing co-op. And it got a little easy. More because you don't need to trick your opponent, you don't need to hide your cards, you're basically just working together. And it works with that. It works just fine. However, the designer, one of the designers, John Gilmore, the other is Isaac Vega, John Gilmore posted a variant on the Board Game Geek forums, I'll post it in the thing, where he made a 2-player variant called the Prisoner's Dilemma. In that, you and your opponent each get 2 secret objectives, 1 good and 1 betrayal. So in the original game, basically everybody's a good person, and then there's a betrayer, and they want the game to tank. They want the team to fail. In the 2-player variant, you both have that objective. And in the Prisoner's Dilemma variant, you win the game if you can complete the main objective, which everyone has to do anyway, except for the betrayer. And you can complete your good objective. So if you do that and you complete the main objective, you win. If your opponent does that also, they win. So you win together. So it's kind of a co-op in that sense. However, you also have your betrayal objective. If you complete that and your opponent doesn't, meaning you basically screwed them over, you win by yourself. If they do it to you and you did your good objective, they did their betrayer objective and they succeeded, you lose and they win. However, if you both betray each other, nobody wins, and that's lovely. And that makes a nice little 2-player variant for Dead of Winter. And the very last one, it's a little different. It's from the same designer, John Gilmore, Vault Wars. This is an auction game, really. It's an auction game where you are bidding for the storage vaults of dead fallen heroes. So they have the treasure in there, they died in battle, and you just want their storage vault. The 2-player variant of this, I haven't played it enough to say if it's good or bad, so I kind of wanted to end with it. You set up a deck where it's a predetermined deck for the ghost bidder. They have a predetermined action, you have to follow steps on how they bid, and it kind of works, but I need to play it more to see if it actually is worth the trouble of setting it up. It's quite a large setup, because you have to find all these cards in the deck that you've already, if you've played the game recently, you've shuffled the deck, now you gotta find these cards again, and then you gotta go through the steps basically, and you just need to have the rulebook open. And though it's not bad, it's not as intuitive as it should be. Maybe if the cards were marked or something, it says like 2. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. It's like 4 2 players take these cards out on the card itself. Maybe like a nice 2 on there. Yeah, that would be good. Anyway, I have a lot more 2-player games. I mean, there's some behind me. Rhiannon mentioned Abluxin, which is here, but it's taking quite a while. We have a lot of games, really. So, in an effort to cut this here, I'm just gonna say goodbye, and hopefully you've learned of some new games that you want to play. Maybe you've only heard of these games and now you want to play them. Hopefully I helped in that. I'll link all the games that I talked about in the description below. Maybe there's going to be an I here somewhere that you can click on with links to a game. I'll also link my channel if you wanted to see some of the things I do normally. And other than that, I'll see y'all next time. For now, bye.